It's time to get a quick and early look at the waiver wire for week 9. We're going to look at those players that you might be able to pick up this week. It's a quick look. We will be doing deeper dives on the waiver wire Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll also take another look on Monday, just a quick look at some of the trending plays. But right now, it's a waiver wire express, baby. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now, because we're going deep on the waiver wire every single day. On top of that, we're using these videos to help you set your lineups, and then we're doing deep dives on the trending players with the You Need series, so you can get the advanced analytics on those guys you might pick up, you might trade away, you might buy in your leagues, whatever's going on. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. You do not want to disappoint Ric Flair. But we're going to start off with our first waiver wire player. This guy should be rostered in most leagues, but he might be on waivers in some because we got to get the change of the roster rates, but it's Cedric Tillman. He's going to be one of the top guys on the waiver wire. He was kind of like a middle guy on the waiver wire last week. He's a top guy now if he hasn't been picked up. 9 targets, 7 catches, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, getting the deep balls. Cedric Tillman's for real. He's getting the deep balls. He'll at least be volatile, like up and down throughout the rest of the season now. He'll at least be giving you spike weeks in the right matchups and game scripts, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing to have on your bench. Even though you're playing the matchups, and even though it could be a headache, that's a good thing to have on your bench because he's got the deep speed to bring home those yellow balls from Jameis Winston, and he could cash in on any given Sunday, and that versus any other wide receiver on the back of your bench or off the waiver wire. You want to chase that home run threat. Jameis Winston is a quarterback to look at off the waiver wire, especially if quarterbacks are taken. Guys are rostering too many quarterbacks. I do not suggest rostering more than one quarterback and just play waivers if your quarterback gets hurt. Play the matchups. Jameis Winston, though, he throws them YOLO balls. He plays with cojones. You saw that today. I noted it with the other players around him, talking about waiver wire ads, must starts, and everything else. But it's my bad because I knew that and I should have been more direct. I did talk about Jameis Winston, but ancillary with the other players. He has the cojones to push the ball downfield. It could get ugly at times. It could be lovely at times, but you're looking at a waiver wire quarterback that's going to get air yards, that's going to put this offense vertical. This offense is going to look different. Like we said leading up to this week, we did not know how different it's going to be, but it's going to be different. I think you got a little bit of the taste. Elijah Moore got you some taste here, and he's getting targets. 18 targets in his last 2 games. He gets a lot of volume. He runs on a lot of the routes. He runs a lot of snaps. He's got a high snap rate throughout the season. They traded for him last year. They moved him around the offense. Last year he had some games with over a 20% target share. He has some upside in the offense. He could be funneled some targets here, especially underneath. He's got speed to burn. This is another wide receiver to look at, especially for those matchups that could end up like this Baltimore game where it's high scoring. So look at the over-unders. If it's 45 plus, pushing 50 more than likely, you're probably going to be looking at him because he is an ancillary player in the offense. And some of these targets could go his way, and he could blow up in some of these matchups. Other matchups, maybe not. But those high-scoring affairs, considering Njoku, Tillman, Cherry Judy's in the offense, those high-scoring affairs, those could go to Elijah Moore in fantasy production. Keon Coleman had that nasty catch. Mossing folks. And we said this in his You Need video earlier this week. He's going to be a volatile wide receiver. He's going to give you the good and the bad. You don't know which games is going to happen. Against Seattle, you knew there was going to be volume in this matchup. You know Amari Cooper's there. He's going to start running more routes and getting more opportunity. But his role and what he does on the field is not going to change. He's going to be there for contested catch situations, and those are usually money plays downfield or in the red zone. And usually if you convert, you score big. If you don't convert, you don't score big. But Keon Coleman, if you like that type of player, this is what you're going to get. Raheem Mostert, the must start, is back. 18.75 PPR fantasy points. We scored some touchdowns here. We're getting opportunities. We're getting the work here in the offense. Devin Achane's the guy in the offense, Mostert's back to getting that ancillary work, enough to make him productive for fantasy football. We're productive 2 out of the last 3 weeks. Back from that injury, things are ramping up. Someone commented in one of my Raheem Mostert videos from way before the season, because he was so cheap in drafts. He was double-digit rounds, and he's getting this type of work, and that's what we were looking at, and then he gets hurt. Now he's a free get off the waiver wire. If he's still there, a lot of people had him stashed, but if he's still there, go ahead. Michael Wilson is a guy to look at in the right matchups, where the volume's right, and it's off and on. You can see by the scoring. He gets the volume, and if he can convert it, he can give you that fantasy production. Michael Wilson is the guy to play with the waiver wire every single week, and he's a YOLO start in fantasy. Malik Willis, Love went down with an injury. He gets you rushing production, and that is huge for quarterbacks. We got Detroit next week. Ball should be flying. I do not expect him to throw for 300 yards in that game if you have to start. I do expect him to take off and run with it, and that could allow him to score some fantasy points. He may rush for a touchdown. That's what you're seeing with Malik Willis. So if you're looking for a quarterback, here's another option for you. Dalton Schultz is getting targets. He's getting more work with Nico Collins out. We've been pointing this out for a while now. It's been up and down. But look at the recent production since week 4. 10.9 PPR fantasy points, 12.4 in week 5, 10.2 in week 6, a 5 spot against the Packers in week 7, 15.7 here in week 8. We're getting volume, we're getting opportunity. That's good, and that's going to give you reliable fantasy production. So you're expecting like around a 10 spot every week, and maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. That's really what that's saying. Maybe a little bit more, 5 more points than 10 this week, or a little bit less, just 5 points the week prior. And that's very stable and consistent for a tight end this year. Look at all the other tight ends in the league. That's very consistent from week 4 to week 8. That is looking solid, not top tier production, but we're looking kind of nicey. Blake Corum, because Kyron Williams is still getting a ton of touches, a ton of snaps, and will the twig break? Because that's more work than any other running back in the National Football League. He could be our Cal Ripken Jr., but maybe it's next year, the year after, but it's going to shorten things up for him because he's getting all that work now instead of later in the year. And I want Kyron Williams to actually be fresher for the back end of the season. It's not like I'm rooting against him, but I'm rooting against Sean McVay here. I'm not happy with Sean McVay. But if the inevitable does happen, Blake Corum is the prospect to look at. Jaylen Wright is a home run threat. Just 2 carries, but for 18 yards, 9 yards per carry. He's going to pop one, and he's already looking quick. He's looking fast. He's looking explosive on the field. Tons of upside. He's going to pop one, and that's going to allow him to get more work. And this is going to be a 3-headed monster back there eventually by the end of the season. This could be a league winner down the stretch once he pops that big run, because we're pushing that. Look at the yards per carry here. 8.5 in week 3. 3.56 in week 4, but it's against the Titans. 6.62 against the Patriots. 6.6 against the Colts. 9 against the Cardinals. Give this man some more work. Let him rumble. Braelon Allen, 12 carries, 32 yards. Not good. We got the touchdown. But again, you can volume yourself into fantasy production. 13 fantasy points. We got the touchdown. But if Breece Hall goes down, we know he's going to get a lot of work. We also know they like using 2 running backs. Zay Davis, another guy to look at here. Trey Benson. We got the speed. We got the pop. We had an illness going into week 7. We were questionable, but we played in it. We dressed up for it. We were on the sidelines for it. We didn't really play in it. We got 7% of the snaps. But 1 carry, 10 yards. Just a guy to pay attention to. If something happens to Connor, he could be a guy down the stretch. Trey Palmer. Not heavily rostered in traditional basic redraft leagues, but a guy to look at. He's getting targets deep downfield. That's what you want to pay attention to. He's getting those money targets that if he brings them in, that could be huge for you, especially once the Buccaneers figure things out. When you look at the game log, it's like this. It's the Elder Scrolls right now. They got to figure things out. They got to hash some things out. Raheem Jarrett, one of my guys from college, was starting to get some work. Pay attention to him. Mike Gesickt here, 8 targets. It's National Tight End Day. The Bengals had to show him some love. 7 catches, 73 yards, 26 fantasy points. And he's a guy you've been picking up off the waiver wire, setting back down, picking up, setting back down. It is what it is, like most tight ends. But again, look at the matchups here against Kansas City. So a matchup there where the wide receivers are going to get stuffed up a bit, and they got to go to the tight ends because other teams did it. Week 1, it was Isaiah Likely. Against Washington, a shootout. Against Philly, a shootout. Look for the shootouts or weird matchups. Mike Gesickt could be your guy. Cade Otton should be rostered. Should be rostered. And if you watch this channel on the daily, you got him rostered, but he's there. Bo Nix is a surprise quarterback. Look at the production since week 5. 27.14 points against the Raiders. 24.7 against the Chargers. Right now, currently 34 points against Carolina. It is Carolina. But the thing is, the rookie quarterback is also getting it done around 75 rushing yards against the Saints, 61 against the Chargers. He's got a little Konami code in him. 47 rushing yards against the Bucs on the road, 25 against Pittsburgh. He's giving you a little rushing floor. He's not dazzling you with the passing production, but it is starting to ramp up a little bit. But again, most of these quarterbacks, like last week, we only had 3 quarterbacks surpass 300 yards passing. 256 this week, 216 in week 6, 206 in week 5, 216 in week 3, 246 in week 2. We're not pushing it a lot downfield, but we're stable with the rock. He's only had 1 interception since week 6. Prior to that, he did not have an interception since week 2. And that's just his first 2 games in the National Football League. He's very stable, consistent with the rock. A little bit of rushing production. He's very stable. Watch them open things up somewhere down the line. Maybe not this year, maybe next year, but a quarterback to pay attention to. But those are some players off the waiver wire. We'll have a lot more throughout the week like we always do. But this is the quick express video, the cliff notes on the cliff notes on the cliff notes. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One, thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.